This episode is proudly supported by OpenTable.
Nearly 1/3 of diners are booking same day. So they're making those decisions on the spot. And 10% are making their bookings within just a few hours. And so it's why it's so important to have booking software like OpenTable, which allows your diners to discover you. And so when restaurants are on platforms like OpenTable, they're much more likely to be discovered. We help diners to connect to restaurants. Ultimately, having technology, using technology, helps you to reattach to those diners.
Experience the power of OpenTable. For an exclusive offer, visit restaurant.opentable.com.au/DITW. This episode of the Luminaries on Deep in the Weeds is proudly supported by Deputy, rostering and timesheets without the usual chaos.
You develop the confidence to play with an idea and not just to act on the first solution that comes into your head. Just sleep on an idea, or let's kind of see how this plays out. And I think that's served me really well.
This is the Luminaries on the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. There have been some that have made a major impact at the pointy end of dining, and others that have been a part of a huge change in the way we eat every day in cafes too. A rare few have made a significant impact on both the top end and the middle market. But the pandemic put everyone's business in jeopardy, no matter how many years in the game, how well known or how successful. What lessons have been learnt from those that have known a lot of success in their careers? Darren Robertson is a co-owner of the Three Blue Ducks and Rocker in Bondi. Darren, how are you?
Good, thanks, mate. Nice to hear your voice again.
It's nice to hear your voice. Lots of things going on in your world. It's been a very turbulent world for a year and a half, but you've made a really big decision to let go of the original Three Blue Ducks.
Correct. Yeah. So that's just sort of unfolding now, actually. So it's been a conversation between us and the guys for quite some time, and I think obviously COVID probably solidified the decision, but also we have outgrown that space. And so it's quite surreal now seeing it in print, and it's like there's this sort of finality about it, and it's just sort of, it kind of hits you because it's obviously a very, very important place for us. That was the OG, and that started the whole thing. But even just talking to Marky the other night, he was kind of just reminiscing about all of the like the good old days when life was so much simpler, and it was just about cooking. It was there was sort of 3 or 4 of us in the kitchen. You'd order your produce, you'd have a mise en place list, you'd cook. It was this awesome community. You'd go home, come in and start again. And I loved every minute of being there. Like we just loved it. It was fantastic. And it was just kind of like, it was quite surreal. It kind of snowballed. Like it was right place, right time. The whole kind of grow it local. We were growing stuff, chickens, bees, this kind of kitchen garden thing. And really legit being interested in like produce and how to grow it, and we're sort of giving it a bit of a crack ourselves, and it just went crazy. We got the hat, we're on MasterChef, then we're doing like Omnivore Paris, and then we're just there's like celebs and other chefs hanging out there, and just like holy shit, we're this little crummy little restaurant in Bronte. It was just honestly it was nuts, and it was just but it gave us so much confidence. So, and it was just like holy shit, if we can do this, we can do anything. And that was it. And they were like, let's do a farm, let's do this, let's open a place in wherever, it's just so yeah, man. So that's look, we've decided to sell it and pass the baton on. Really, it was just like pass the baton on to hopefully some young guns like we once were that are just passionate and want to do some cool stuff in the space, because it's a beautiful little community in Bronte. And it's just not even really, it's not about making a coin or whatever. It's just like continuing the legacy, I suppose. And ideally, it'd be great if some staff were to take it on, or friends of friends or whatever, but we'll see what happens to it. But yeah, man, 11 years.
How are you feeling about it?
I feel a bit. I feel like I want to give it a bit of a send off. To be honest, I mean, we sort of did a post the other night. We chose not to go to press. We just thought it was just a funny one. But like, let's just first of all let our staff know. Just try and do it properly, and then and then we posted something on our own socials and sort of did it that way on our sort of website, and to create this kind of sale. There was talk about like an auction, but we've got like a link to our website, so you put your expressions of interest on there, and we sort of we're going down that road, and that was it. But I don't know, it would be nice because we had this sort of outpour of like old customers and staff members, and so I feel like we should probably do a bit of a send off, maybe at Rosebery. I think that would be like a bit of a, I don't know, just like a bit of a closing party or something, but. Yeah, it's definitely it's final. The decision's made, and I think it's probably the right decision. If I'm honest, we've definitely got a lot of other stuff happening, and we've got this amazing. We're just about to open or expand in Rosebery, and so we've got this amazing sort of talent pool of staff that are in Bronte. That I think they're kind of sort of waiting to expand and sort of grow with us and evolve and it is quite constricting logistically in Bronte. Like it's pretty small, and we've tried it. We've renovated and we've done every sort of change and cosmetic change and spent heaps on the sort of garden and whatever. But I mean, there's only so much you can do in that space. Whereas Rosebery is this we've taken on more space now, and so it's a bit more of a blank canvas. So we're going to take like our Bronte staff over and hopefully create sort of like the Avengers and just this like absolute weapons like front and back of house. So it'll be like that's pretty exciting as well. So it's not like we're shutting up shop and there's no more ducks. Like it's just it's an end of that chapter, and then sort of one door closes and hopefully several more will open. But yeah, it's always a bit sad to shut anything, I suppose.
Well, the Bronte ducks had incredible impact, not just on consumers and people who love good food, but it had a major impact on the development and what you guys have done since. Do you have any fond memories of the experiences in the early days at Bronte?
Mate, so it started really so obviously Marky, Sam and Chris opened the doors. They had a little breakfast joint and from the word go, like they got best breakfast in Sydney. It was really hit the ground running. And then I was doing pop-ups after Tets, and I was doing this thing called the table sessions. It was like dinners in interesting spaces. So I spoke to Mark, we turned it into like a sort of fine dining sort of Dego space for one night. And it was like menu printed on organic cotton, and with just, I think it was 7 or 8 dishes. And it went so well. And we just were, we had loud music, and it was sort of interesting, progressive food, not specifically fine dining in terms of white tablecloths, but definitely like it was a really good menu, and it went so well. And to be honest, from then he just sort of said, "Well, do you want to come and hang out a bit more?" And I think that was the conversation. And then I remember sitting around, and there was 3 of them. Jeff just come on at the time, and I sat down, and I'm like the worst negotiator ever, or I was back then. And I paid in some money, which is like peanuts, and then I was like then became like the 5th duck. But it was just brilliant. It was just nice that other chefs would come and hang. Like I remember Lukey Powell he'd come and do a stint. Michael Clift, Big Mike, Jem came and hung out. It was just like it was a bit of a chef hang, which was it was amazing for us. Obviously Shannon Debrosini, and just people would come and stop in. Like Ben Greeno would come in on his days off, and just for us that was like meant so much. To have that sort of space that was on the sort of, just this little place on McPherson Street. But just, I think for any chef, when other chefs come in, it's like the ultimate compliment. And yeah, we had, I think when Yanni came in, and David Thompson in particular, was because that was the last meal I had in London. I went to Nam and I ate David Thompson's food, and it just blew me away. I've never eaten Thai food before. And it was crazy. And it was just like, he really made headlines. It was just like, this guy's just putting like fried shallots on desserts, and it was just. And I remember chatting to him. I was like, "Mate, you just blew me away." I was just like so like foreign to me, He's like, mate, you called my food foreign. He goes like, what about this? Look at the crazy shit you're doing. But he said it in like a really complimentary way, and it was just like, oh my god, like. But I just felt, I think we all felt like we were on, you know, the right path anyway. And when we're so aligned as business partners, and even now, like. I'm just so, honestly, this sounds so namby-pamby and Byron, but I am so grateful that after 11 years of hospo, which is, you know, that is like dog years, I still love my business partners to bits. I you know, it is like a marriage, and we've had many biffos, especially Mark and I, because we're both passionate people. But I love him. I love him like a brother, and I just like, I wouldn't change a thing. And it's just been, it was all spawned from that space, from that tiny little cafe. Yeah.
Well, I want to explore the expansion of the Ducks and what you have created, but you came from the fine dining world and changed so dramatically as a chef. Take us back to when you first started. What was it like in the commercial kitchen for you when you first got your career off the ground?
Horrible. It was absolutely horrible. Yeah, I was a little bit unlucky because I was washing up as most people, you know, most kids do, washing up in a restaurant. And I decided to, I think, the story goes, sort of red, wet, white heat. That was, you know, one of the chefs lent me white heat. I read it and decided I was going to be a chef, which was quite common for my generations of cooks. Like, it was a very influential book. So I gave up art and design, and then thought, if I can learn to cook, then that's independence, and I can definitely get a job anywhere. But the head chef at the time was, you know, wasn't the most savoury of characters, and it was pretty old school. It was many years ago when it was probably accepted for, you know, a bit of Billy in the kitchen, but it was horrible. I remember often going home and I'd just cry. I would just, you know, you're just a kid, and you just come out of school and you don't really know any better, and yeah, that was pretty grim. But then I qualified and I was out of there, like pretty much the day after. And then after that, I was just so lucky. I I just worked with the most amazing people. And the big one was, this guy, Mark Raffan. It was a Michelin star restaurant called Gravetime Manor. And that just changed my life. It changed how I thought about food. Then it became like a lifestyle. Like, it was just like, it was live-in accommodation. Marcus Waring has just left to go up to work with Gordon, and I took over from Marcus. I moved into his caravan, and there's a big hole in the floor. In the middle of the caravan, there's a big hole, and you see like the grass going through it. It was pretty nuts. But so I just came on this, just the chef de party, and it was just everything. Like, there was 6 full-time gardeners. You know, we'd get like, you know, venison, rabbits in, pheasants. And everything was coming in on the fur and on the feather. Like, it was just, you know, it was pretty legit. There was this old baker downstairs called Bernie. He was probably about 60, 65. This old, like, German dude. He was really grumpy, but lovely guy. And he'd just make the croissants and pastries. And, you know, you go and smoke the fish, and there was a big sort of huge smoker outside. It was just a beautiful place. And I just learned so much about food. But also the chef was an absolute gentleman. And, like, you were just there to learn. It was just, for me, it was just like university. It was just, you know, and it was long hours, but you just always trying stuff. And then there was, Sarah as this amazing pastry chef, and I'd get off my section and I'd go and help her and try. And that's just how it was. Do you know what I mean? It was sort of before Fair Work and all that sort of stuff. It was absolutely, you know, it was by choice. Like, we were there just because we knew that it was like, I was getting quite ambitious then. I was like, I just want to know. You know, the more you learn about something, the more this opens up this vast, interesting world. It's like, this is amazing. And he was the guy that owned it was a guy called Peter Herbert, this guy in his 80s, and he was the guy that got me the job for Tets. And, you know, said to me, like, if you do 2 years here, do 2 years here, I'll get you a job anywhere in the world. And after I stayed there for 3.5. And at the time, French Laundry was number 1. So it's like, go and work for Thomas Keller or Tetsuya's. We had a few. His son, Lee Stone Herbert, worked with. I think he just done the opening for Kent Street. So basically, this guy just made a phone call and said, "Look, I've got this guy Daz that wants to come out." And I was out within a month. I packed up my life. Yeah. I think I had $2,000. I think you had to have a prerequisite. I think it was like you had to have £2,000 or dollars in your account to come over, which I spent in about 2 months. And that was it. I'd like literally a little backpack.
What were your thoughts of Australia when you landed here?
I was just so green, and I just didn't know. Actually, I knew one pastry chef. I knew this girl Susie, who was a pastry chef in a Graveside. So I had one person I knew, and I just remember rocking up to the interview at Kent Street, and I remember Vicky Wilde was there, and she said, I got there a bit early, and I was so nervous. And she said, look, Tets isn't around at the moment. He's going to be about an hour late. But in the meantime, if you just want to read all this stuff, I got some like magazine articles and stuff. And he basically gave me this folder, and it was all these clippings and articles of basically every time Tets had been mentioned, accolades, restaurant of the year, 3 hats. And I went next door to the pub, and I had a beer, and I was just reading this stuff. And I was like, shush, then even more nervous. And I remember I met him in the bar. And he was just lovely. He sort of gave me a hug, sat me down. And I remember I was so nervous, like the room was spinning. Like it was just, I was like, hold it together, Daz. And that was it. And he was just really cool. And he just said, look, just come and have a trial. And if you like it, we'll talk about sponsorship. And, you might not like us. We might. And it was just such a lovely approach that if I liked it. And that was it. And then I got in that kitchen at the time. It was Martin Ben was the head chef, and David Pegram, and there was definitely a lot of ties with London, and I think that always helps. And it's just in your kitchen. It's, I suppose, a tiny world. There's always, you'll always know someone that knows someone. So I definitely think that made it easier having these sort of ties from the UK. But it was amazing. I mean, it's well publicated, like who was in that kitchen at the time, but it was nuts. That was legit, Avengers, Dan Puskas, Dan Hong, Pepperell, Luke Powell, Shazza. It was just, you look around, it's like Louis Tikaram, Jowett Yu. Yeah, Christ. It was nuts. I wish I'd taken more photos, and, like just those days, just like, wow, that was incredible. But, started at the bottom again, just learning about seaweeds and mirians and soys and stuff I'd never used. For me, it was just like finishing a sauce it was always finished with butter. Then you monte it, with some butter, and that was it. Whereas Tets was all about freshness and acid levels and lime and, yuzu. And I was like, oh, this is just, that just blew the doors off for me. Like that, just another approach to food. Which again, I'm forever grateful for.
You ended up rising the ranks and becoming head chef of Tetsuya's, one of the most celebrated restaurants, not only in Australia, but in the world. Well, tell us about that time. Do you have any stories of really key moments for you?
I do. I mean, to be honest, that was incredible. It was very, very, very consuming. You sort of don't, back then it was probably the best place in Australia. I'd say arguably one of the best kitchens in Australia. And, pretty firm, like it was just everything had to be sort of, pretty much as perfect as it could be. There are lots and lots of pressure. I mean, you just pressure that you put on yourself, really. And but it was amazing and got so much out, and I traveled the world with Tets. We did so many some of the highlights were like Tokyo Taste, which was great. We'd just been up on stage with Tets in front of, like the who's who, Hervé Tisse, Ferran Adria in the crowd. And we were in Chicago. We did the Charlie Trotter's 20th anniversary dinner. So we cooked alongside Heston, again, Ferran, Thomas Keller, Pierre Hermé. Yeah, it was unbelievable. And we were there for a couple of days prepping in Charlie's kitchen. And then we went to his house party. And it was me and Michael Clift, actually, and we sort of got there, two idiots from Australia, and there was like Harold McGee was in there, and I was like, oh my God, Harold, I just read his book, like The Science of Food and Cooking. And then Wiley Dufresne was doing, behind his bar in his house, doing canapes. It was just like, you're literally Charlie, like sort of Willy Wonka's factory. It was unbelievable. And then just everyone's interesting. You're just talking to chefs and restaurateurs, and it's people from all around the world for Charlie Trotter. That was particularly surreal. And then just going out with the chefs after, like even the gods of our industry. And I remember we had this lock-in, there's a couple of, really famous chefs like dancing on the bar doing, 3 pours of tequila and stuff that you probably wouldn't get away with now. But it was just, like you just worked so hard, you played hard, and, it was just definitely this sort of camaraderie that was, it was beautiful. But, I've so many fond memories of the Tets days and friendships that formed back then. I still chat to those guys now. Like I spoke to Luke Powell 2 days ago. I speak to Shaz, sort of most weeks. I need to reach out to Hongi actually. I haven't booked in for a while, but yeah, and it's just sort of always keep tabs on. I'm always fascinated and sort of and care and worry about like the chefs that you've worked with over the years. You want everyone to do well. It's almost like I never felt like there was any competition between us. It's like when the tide rises, we all benefit. Do you know what I mean? Like whether it's sharing ideas or having a bit of success, and I really felt that with. It's not like, I just feel very like in the Sydney, certainly the Sydney food scene, but definitely Australia, like very very safe and like just like people have got your back, and I think it's really important because it's a bloody tough industry.
This episode of the Luminaries on Deep in the Weeds is proudly supported by Deputy, helping managers and staff do their best work.
Hospitality is all about the connection. A business starts with passion, but gets bogged down with all the complexities that come with life, society, and rules. If you can simplify this mundane, then people can be happy and they can thrive. And when you have happy staff members and happy managers, your customers will sense it. They'll be happy. And you create that connection. That connection is hospitality is about.
For more information, go to deputy.com. When you left Tetsuya's, you started your journey to take your cooking in a very different direction. What triggered that?
I didn't know what I was going to do. I really didn't. And I was I knew I wanted to leave Tets just because I wanted to challenge myself again. And not that it wasn't a challenge, but I thought 8 years, that's enough. And I one day wanted to do my own thing. I thought the longer I leave it now, you're almost going to be typecast. You'll always be that guy from Tetsuya's, and everything you do will be a derivative of a Tetsuya dish because they're so famous. So it will always be, that's like a version of the ocean trout. Or do you know what I mean? So I just, I decided to I traveled a bit. I went to Europe and sort of spent most of my savings. And I went to New York. I went with Morgan and Mitchell. Went to Omnivore New York and just went to a lot of dinners and collaborations. And it was the term pop up it was quite new at the time. I think there was, I forgot his name now, but I think there was a guy in Bronte doing it. I forgot. There was I think his name was Hugh, an older chap. If you're listening, I'm sorry, mate. But and there was a older lady doing it in Hong Kong. Like there weren't that many people in a flat, and I just read about this term, this like pop up, and just having no rules and not the pressure of being reviewed, and just doing food any way you want. So I started doing that. Do this thing called table sessions. So I was doing the dinners in art galleries and shops and little cafes. And then we obviously started toys. So Morgie, Mel at the time, they sort of formed this little toys, which Taste of Young Sydney, and joined those guys. So that was Dan Hong, Mitch Orr, Zumbo, myself, Morgs. And, we're doing these little pop-up dinners. And it was just, cooking became really fun again. It was more, and it was using like music as an influence and, knockoffs and the conversations and jokes and pop culture, to inspire your cooking as well as just produce. And so I just started doing that. And then literally it was just, I was running a stall at farmers markets. I was definitely learning a bit more about produce. I was becoming more interested with the farmers and people behind the food. So I actually had a stall at Piermont, and I had a stall at Bondi every Saturday. So Piermont was the first Saturday of every month. So I was like going to the farms, I'd source some produce, take it to my kitchen, probably highly illegal, take it back to my kitchenette, and then serve it on the Saturday. And that's sort of how I made a living. So yeah. And so I was doing stuff kind of like that. And then just bumped into the I'd always checking in on Mark because they were doing this little cafe, the Ducks. So I'd always go in and just have a look. And then we thought, okay, at the time, cafe was sort of frowned upon. So you were either a restaurant chef or you were a cafe or hotel, whatever. And I just love the idea of just doing something completely different and just going to work in a cafe. It's definitely with a restaurant, we're doing some cool food at night, but having the food served during the day as interesting and as legit with regards to where it's from, technique, Yeah, so it's like you shouldn't have to wait till dinner to have something really, interesting, progressive, and tasty. And that was sort of our mission, And I think it was the style of Mark's food and mine was so completely different back then. Like his was in the greatest of respects. It was a bit rough. It was like big, bold, like very, very tasty. And mine was probably a bit more elegant and maybe, I think probably complicated to be honest, but definitely, there's maybe more to a bit more sort of fine dining-esque. And I think when we combined the two, we just came up with this. I mean, I suppose it's like this duck style, which still was just like the blood that runs through the restaurants now. Like, has to be sort of ducksy. Like, it's got to be delicious, obviously nutritious. It's kind of got to be fun. Like, you want to kind of lick the plate clean, but it doesn't need to be perfect. Like, embrace the imperfections. It's all that sort of stuff. But every component needs to be, whether it's, if it is an avocado or an egg, like make sure that egg's like perfectly seasoned before it goes on the plate. Like just little things, like, you know what I mean? Like that. And so that sort of, and I think that was the sort of one of the secrets to the success was just that sort of the food style that just was created purely by chance, purely just over a bit of sort of friendship and one too many beers.
You have so many venues now in so many places, and they're all quite different as well. In Melbourne, Brisbane, Byron, Nimbo. Tell us about the growth of the group from the one site and how the decisions were made with all of the owners.
Well, they're all, to be honest, lots and lots of opportunities. When we got a bit of success with the first one, and then lots of opportunities came our way, and we were kind of like, kids in a candy store, really. So, it's so exciting, go and open here. We can go and open in Japan and New York and whatever. And we were sort of chasing rabbits, if I'm honest. You sort of waste so much time going to every single sort of, vacant space. But then you start learning a lot. Start learning a lot about real estate, leases, and all that sort of jazz. But we did the golden rule for us. But it had to tick more than just the financial box. It had to be fun, and it had to be a reason for it. So we got offered this space in the snow. It was like a pop up in Falls Creek. So we did that, and then we did like a place next door. We did like a pop up in a hotel. We had like a street food bar restaurant where it'd be tacos and hot dogs, but we're making the tortillas from scratch. Everything was made from scratch, and we'd snowboard all day, and then come and cook at night. And so then that gave us a bit more confidence. And then the chat about having our own plot of land or doing something like growing some stuff or having a farm, that was the conversation. And then the farm opportunity came up. And thought, well, Byron's pretty fun. Wheel surf. It's 5 minutes away from a beach, and we can actually learn about, soil and, probably take the whole sustainability a bit further, designing a kitchen and a bar from the ground up. So that sort of allowed us to do that. And then, so Brisbane, Nimbo. Nimbo was great. I think it was good. It's a really good hunting ground for Marky, and it's on the way to Melbourne. So the urban surf again, like a first man-made surf park in Australia. It was like, it sounded a bit theme parky at first, but we met the guys, and they seemed really legit. It was like it was all about community and conservation and water safety and all the sort of beautiful stuff. And these parks are going to happen. It's like, it'd just be good for the first one to fall in the right hands and serve decent food. And so we sort of did that. And that's apart from the 1,000 lockdowns we've had, it has been successful. It has been fun. So I think really they've all we have chats and we all fight these things out. And we've never really had to vote on anything. It was like always common sense has prevailed. You sort of create these meetings, and it was almost like a fight club at once upon a time. Like we were just really, become so heated, but you develop this confidence in your friendship that you can basically say anything within the parameters of a meeting. You have to have it out. And then once you're out the meeting, it's like life goes on. You're back at work and like, do you know what I mean? And we still now, you develop a bit more of an awareness and a respect. You know where the line is. You know what buttons not to push. And so now those meetings are a lot more civilized. But we're, pretty lucky. But and that's just what happens. And that's what continues to happen now. And now it's just like, we still want to grow and evolve and still. I don't think any of us want to stop doing it. I think we just still want to be, let's just stay relevant in the industry. And now, I mean, to be honest with you, I'll probably start, I think we'll all start stepping back and mentoring and setting those parameters for our staff and managers for them to sort of step up and giving them the skills and the tools to run these places. And of course, I always want to be involved. But I think, I sort of do other stuff now. I sort of, working for Tasting Australia, and obviously like writing for Delicious and all these other, really cool things that obviously Andy's got his MasterChef gig and Marky does his hunting. So we've all got these other kind of side hustles, but they also complement the ducks. They give you perspective, and I think that's great. And you can also bring something else like a freshness to the table.
You mentioned the DNA of the ducks that runs a thread through all of your venues. What do you think it is that's the secret to the success of the Three Blue Ducks?
I think money not being a priority really helps. I think and it really never was. And obviously there's needs and wants when you get kids and you've got to buy nappies and clothes and stuff, as you probably know. But it's still never a priority. It really isn't. And I think that, it's just literally having like-minded people with regards to, and everyone will have to surf, whatever, but just being passionate and invested in this idea. And then that in turn attracts similar people. So it's, that make you better. And they're younger, faster, more passionate, smarter. And that's what's happened. So now it's gone from, 3 guys to now there's, 3. I mean, when we open the restaurants, there'll be about 350 staff. And just, and we have these staff parties, and it's amazing. You look around, you're like, holy shit, look at this. And some of them, like we've got Sam Mordo, head chef at Byron. He's been with us from the day we opened, and he's still there now, and he's been through umpteen lockdowns. There's a lot of moving parts to Byron. It's not sitting around in hammocks it's a busy place. And we've got many staff that have just stayed with us. Which is brilliant, and that's definitely become. I want that to be a focus as well, just to make it not a badge of honor, but this sense of community and belonging that I feel that's kept me enthusiastic about the whole thing. I want the staff to feel that as well. So even yesterday was coming at me like, how can we? There is a crisis. There's a staff crisis, in I think globally, but definitely in Australia, there's a shortage. So it's like, how can we improve? How can we make it even better for the staff? Is it offering like shares or start like a sort of like a magazine to keep everyone up to date? Or is it like, we have to do farm visits. We have like kind of days out with all this sort of like stuff we do, discounts and what have you. But I think just improving and investing in our staff and supporting them, I think that it really is important. And I think often teach them about the business of the business, I think, which is something it's really overlooked in our industry. Like, you learn how to cook, but no one teaches you about saving money or investing or how a lease works or payroll, any of that stuff. So I think it would be great to mentor and guide staff, certainly management, about that sort of stuff, and encourage them to go on and start their own places. That should be encouraged. I was always fairly discouraged, and there was a bit of fear around it, which is a shame, because it is definitely a tough industry, but it's not impossible. And like there's, it's I think whether it's like just a little sandwich bar or whatever, like you can still give it a crack.
How have you changed over the lifespan of the ducks?
I've definitely mellowed. I was a bit fiery back in the day. But I think I'm definitely healthier, and I've just slowed down, and I try and step back and look at the big picture. And I think as a chef, like kitchens they're immediate, and you've got this almost like this tunnel vision to get through the day, to get through a service and a list of prep and conduct a service. But often all you see is like, you see what's in front of you. You see the docket rail, the chopping board, and it's kind of hard to step back and, ensure that sort of perspective. And given many like multiple venues, that's so important, to step back and breathe and often, to be honest, be the eye of the storm. Certainly now when there's so much uncertainty, it's so important for you with, certainly with the staff around, some of them are sort of looking up to you for answers that you may or may not have. So, and I think given you develop the confidence to play with an idea and not just to act on the first solution that comes into your head, just sleep on an idea or just, all right, let's kind of see how this plays out. And I think that's served me really well. And I think just, trust in your gut. You definitely develop like a bit, that's an amazing ninja skill, and just reading people. Yeah, I think, but yeah, I try and look after myself. We all eat clean, I train, exercise, I still love cooking, and I know a lot of people get burnt out because it's quite grueling, but I love it. And I always want to be involved in food, in some capacity, whether it's, festivals, writing, restaurants, whatever. I never want to retire. And I think, I'm definitely grateful for that. And even during lockdown, I was probably cooking more than ever, and that is a sad reality when you're overseeing huge venues. Often, I can't remember the last time I held a knife at work. Do you know what I mean? I just had the phone glued to my ear, just trying to make stuff happen, it is what it is. But, the restaurant's closed. First thing you do, you off to the veggie markets, you're cooking stuff, you try new ideas, and you're like, oh, this would work really well. So, yeah.
How do you see the next few years for hospitality in Australia?
I think there's obviously going to be huge change. I'm ever the optimist, I definitely think there's probably going to be a realization that proper food is probably underpriced at the moment. I think what people are charging and trying to charge. I think, sadly, there's going to be a lot more automation. You probably, you're seeing it now. When you go to a restaurant, there's less human to human, or certainly cafes, less human to human contact. It's scanner, buzzer, the phone, your food comes to you. But I think, I really hope that stays for those sort of mid-level places. And there's always the old school service that you get, say Sean's Panorama. And, there's just like face-to-face, they're reeling off the specials. There's like, I'm just kind of old-fashioned. I think, but food's going to improve. I really do. I think the stuff that we're interested in back in the day was probably fringe. There was like grow it local. There was, the single-use plastic. I remember we'd get flack from, not everyone. We got a lot of support, but there was a bit of pushback when we decided just to even like abolish plastic straws, and like, oh, they're soggy, they're this. It's like, and now it's just everyone does it, and keep cups. It's just there's all these little things, and then composting and recycling and just bits and pieces. I definitely think that's. With climate change, all that sort of stuff, that's definitely an interest that we have. And I think also because of that, how food's grown, how it's sourced, where it's from, there's still a growing interest I've seen from the customer, which is great. Which will allow us to charge what we charge, and perhaps more. And we won't have to like. Put lipstick on food, just all these like silly things like, there's the infatuation for deconstructing and smears and all this sort of, and I think now like more than ever, like people want the classic, they just want, a beautifully shucked oyster with a bit of citrus or even by itself. It's just amazing, and like, do you know what I mean? And like a decent roast chook, like a pasture raised chook or a, grass-fed steak with like just some greens or some mustard, whatever. Like, I think we'll probably see more of that. And I think more people just specializing in one thing, whether it is a particular region. Whereas back in the day, you'd go and you get those yellow pages of menus and they'd go pizza, pasta, burger, Thai, curry, roast. Fortunately, we're seeing less of that. And people actually being really specific about what they cook, whether it is, just we do 3 bowls of ramen, or what Lindsay does with the his kebab. He's got like 2 or 3 choices, but it's the most amazing kebab you're going to have. I think they'll just hone in on a particular cuisine or a region or a town or whatever it is and go like, this is what we do, and it's unapologetic and it is fucking amazing. But it's not everything for everyone anymore. And I think we need more of that. but we'll see, mate. I don't know.
I know the Ducks has got a lot of expanding and a lot more to it, but you're going to let go of the original very soon. For a young gun who might be looking at taking over the Ducks original site, what advice would you have for them?
Christ, I'm a big fan of collaboration, and I know it's a bit frowned upon, and it's almost a bit cliche now. But I think in hospo, it's really important. I see owner-operated places, and it's great. When it's going well, it's going well, and you get an accolade, and it's your name, and it's amazing. But it's inevitable. You're going to get some rough patches, whatever that may be. Could be completely unforeseen, and it's just nice to share. It's nice to share the shit with your mates that are in exactly the same boat, that are as financially and energetically invested as you are. And for me, that served me so well, and sure, you don't make as much money and whatever. But I just think, and I think in this day and age, and probably the only mistake, probably the best and the worst thing we could have done is actually have business partners that share this very similar skill set to us. I've said it before, we're almost like this uninvestable group. We've got 3 chefs. There's 6 of us and 3 of us are chefs. We do the same thing. I mean, we've all got different styles. So, ideally you'd want someone that, say, is pretty good with, accounts, or that is great for front of house. I think the whole, the Brent Savage got it really right. Those guys are amazing. Nick Heidelbrand and Brent Savage. There's this dynamic duo. Do you know what I mean? They really complement each other. And I think that's great. There's like sort of safety in numbers. Probably not too many. I think we've been really fortunate with 6, but 2 or 3 of you in those, tight little group, owner operated, have a great idea. And it's like, if you do something good, they come. They sort of always have. You just look at, I don't know. When you look at, say, Luke Powell in Chippendale all the time, it's just like this really nothing area. Opens port LP meats, and I just bought his blood sausage up in Byron now, years later. Do you know what I mean? That's the stuff. It's just the stuff you crave. It's like, it's just good food. And that's the beauty of it. You look at, from the ultimate extreme is Elbury in Roses, where you've literally just got to drive down this bloody cliff, the arse end of nowhere. You know what I mean? The guy he had this dream, this passion, followed it through, and went, best restaurant in the world. I'm not saying open the Bully in McPherson Street, but Varane, if you are listening, mate, you need the location. I'll tell you what.
Well, Daz, you're always entertaining and amazing to talk to, and I know there's so much more to the 3 Blue Ducks story. Good luck with everything, and good luck enjoying letting go of Bronte. Please keep in touch, and we'll talk again soon.
Really appreciate it, mate. See you, brother.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.